Hello and welcome back to my channel. My TBR has grown astronomically. All thanks to you. I think this is my third video. I'm pretty sure my third video in my BookTube recommend series. I guess it's not really a series, but videos that I am making to deliberately mark off books that have been added to my TBR thanks to BookTube. So books that other channels have recommended in their videos or in comments to me in some of my videos. This has really become one of my favorite videos to film because I really enjoy knocking books off my TBR. I really enjoy reading genres that are recommended to me, and I really enjoyed the way that it has connected me with some of you guys. So today I have the next two books that I have read thanks to you. The first book is Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Race. This book was recommended to me by Mark from The Book Thing. I believe this came up because at some point on my channel, I can't remember when, we were talking about Jane Eyre, and I was talking just about some of the nuance and thoughts that I had rereading Jane Eyre as an adult, and Mark recommended this book to me. If you're not familiar with the plot of Jane Eyre, I don't want to give spoilers, but also it is a classic that has been around for a very long time. I will try to still say things as much as I can without giving away crucial details. But the plot of Jane Eyre is important for the plot of Wide Sargasso Sea. So in Jane Eyre, there is, obviously Jane is the main character, and she goes to be a caretaker for a little girl in the home of a man named Mr. Rochester. So many things happen, but Jane finds out that Mr. Rochester was previously married, and his first wife, Bertha, was, according to the book, was considered mentally insane. So in Wide Sargasso Sea, it is basically the story of Bertha, or as we find out from this book, her real name is Antoinette, and it's her story. How did she end up meeting and marrying Mr. Rochester? What actually happened with her? Did she actually have mental health issues? And what ended up actually happening? So I really enjoy the concept of books like this, where it takes a character that isn't necessarily featured in a way in Jane Eyre. She's not a main character. And in this book, delving more into her and her story and her life and who she is as a person. The book itself is written in a very unusual way, and I have not been able to quite put my finger on how to describe it. It's kind of written in chunks and bits and pieces. It's almost as if a person is recounting scattered memories of an event, which I think is quite an interesting way. I haven't read any other books by this author, so I don't know if that is her normal writing style or if it was done intentionally for this book. It did take me a little while to get into it because of that, but as we progressed through the book, I started to have somewhat more of an appreciation for that writing style. The book opens when Antoinette is a young girl and she's living on the island of Martinique with her family. Somewhere along the way, there is a house fire. Antoinette has vague memories and recollections of her mother just not being herself and just not acting the way that her mother used to act. And in the passage of time, Antoinette grows up. I thought it was quite interesting how racism came into play in the story as well. Antoinette's parents owned a plantation and they were enslavers. And the people from Martinique obviously had very well-deserved anger and frustration toward the white people that were coming in and building on their land and enslaving them. So then, even when slavery was no longer technically allowed, many of the people who were previously enslaved did leave the plantation. However, a couple people, including someone named Christophine, stayed and took care of Antoinette and her mother prior to her mother's passing. So a lot of the people, they somewhat tolerated Antoinette, but then a person named Mr. Mason comes and things just really go downhill. I'm kind of accidentally jumping around in the plot. Mr. Mason is the stepfather of Antoinette, and he is pretty rude and intolerable. He says horrible things about the people who live on the island and the people who stayed to care for his stepdaughter and wife. And then things get even worse when one Mr. Rochester arrives on the scene. Mr. Rochester ends up coming to the island, meeting Antoinette. It is somewhat of an arranged marriage. They're mutually told that it will be a beneficial marriage, that they will like each other, there might be money involved, and basically marry each other. Mr. Rochester, however, he never takes a chance to get to know Christophine or any of the other people who live there. He somewhat makes an attempt to get to know Antoinette, but not really. Basically, he's really disenchanted with life. He is not a fan of the island. He does not like the path that life has taken him, and he's made it quite clear that he's not really happy to be there. And that is somewhat the plot of the book. I know that this book was supposed to be Antoinette's story. In my opinion, I actually liked how it portrayed Mr. Rochester even more than how I liked that it portrayed Antoinette. I feel like it explained Rochester so well. In Jane Eyre, Mr. Rochester is kind of an elusive figure. He's mysterious. He's somewhat aloof, but romantic. We never really know him in Jane Eyre, in my opinion. So I liked that Wide Sargasso Sea kind of explained him a little bit. He was young, he was immature, he was disenfranchised, and his own doubt and unhappiness and selfishness prepped the way for him to so readily believe the lies of others. It was almost like he needed an excuse, a reason to latch onto, to give himself permission and let himself off the hook for what he was feeling and didn't want to deal with within himself. Almost like he's saying, well, if she's crazy, then it can't be me at fault. That he started to feed himself the own lies that then he started to believe when other people started telling him, oh, well, you know, her mom had a mental breakdown. And then he was quick to latch on, oh, okay, Antoinette must have the same issues. And he's the one that gave her the name Bertha. She was not a fan of the name Bertha. And that was infuriating too, that this person could come on the scene and completely rewrite another person's story, which is interesting, the parallel track of how the white families came in and rewrote the stories of the black people that lived on the island. Interesting to note. And then the classic blaming her for his unhappiness and his choices. It seems like a classic Darvo. Darvo is deny, attack, reverse the victim and the offender. So he gaslights her and makes himself out to be the victim and her to be the one who is harming him. To be honest, I was a little more confused, I guess, by Antoinette's story. There were so many themes and elements, as I've already talked about, some of the racism elements, some of the Darvo and misogyny and those elements. I also really liked the mental health themes because that obviously plays a very big role in Wide Sargasso Sea and Jane Eyre. With Antoinette's mother having a mental health crisis and Antoinette having some similarities, and Antoinette herself being dismissed over mental health concerns, there are so many ways that this book makes you think. And it really kind of approaches the theme of being othered in several different ways. This theme of being treated as other than, of loneliness, of voices not being heard or valued or respected, of not being seen for who you really are or how you exist as an individual person. At the end of the day, Antoinette was forced into an arranged marriage, taken against her wishes to England, where gradually her autonomy and voice and actual freedom were taken away from her. All while Mr. Rochester is patting himself on the back, telling himself that he's right and that she's the crazy one while he gets to be happy. So it's not an easy read. It's a pretty short book. It's not a long book, but I feel like the writing style itself was not necessarily the easiest for me anyways, but also just all of the themes and all the things to think through. I do think it's a great book to read after reading Jane Eyre, just for getting another potential perspective. Obviously, who knows what Charlotte Bronte really envisioned for the character of Antoinette, but this is definitely a very plausible book that gives a lot of insight into Antoinette and Mr. Rochester. The second book that I want to highlight today is a book called Sandwich by Catherine Newman. This book was recommended by Nick from Dr. Cranky Pants Reads. Sandwich is a book about a vacation. It is a book about a family, a wife, a mom, their 2 adult children, and their 2 adult children's significant others. Our main character is Rocky, and she is over the moon excited to be having this week of vacation with her family. And she is doing everything she can to just make it the best week possible for everyone who is at this beach vacation rental. She is planning fun outings, she is planning the beach days, she is making the sandwiches to take on the beach days. She's just happy to spend time with her family. Her kids are rapidly growing up and moving on with their lives. They now have significant others that they are bringing on this family vacation. She wants them to feel welcome and like part of the family, but also it's a bit strange having 2 new people joining them. Rocky is so excited that her kids are grown. She's so proud of them and the people that they have become, but there's also this longing for the past and for when her kids were little and for the hours and days and weeks and months and years that she poured into her kids when they were little. She loves her husband and thinks that overall he's a really great guy, but sometimes he can be obnoxious. And on top of it all, Rocky is going through menopause, which is no walk in the park and brings a whole host of physical and emotional changes. This is a book about menopause, but it's also a book about a woman who is yearning for the past, but excited about the present. A woman who loves her family and is trying to make way for the future. And it's also a book about a woman who has spent her life giving and serving and being downplayed. Her family still makes jokes at her expense. Her husband makes cliche jokes about her emotions and her feelings and menopause, and jokes about how he is the long-suffering husband putting up with all of the ups and downs that comes with being a woman. And yet he still wants to use his wife's body regardless of what she's experiencing. And it's being portrayed as a sweet, loving husband thing to do. He's kind of oblivious to what she's experiencing. And Rocky, as all of these things are unplaying and this week-long vacation is unfolding, she really is at war within herself because she doesn't like the things he says. She doesn't like the jokes that people make, but he's such a nice person. He's such a nice husband. He's such a good dad. She feels guilty for not liking the way that she's being treated. And within herself, she is blaming it on the menopause. She says, it must just be like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I don't know why I'm feeling so angry, why I'm feeling so upset. It must be menopause. People make jokes about her emotions and her ups and downs as if she couldn't actually be feeling real and genuine emotions about something. Now, I haven't been through menopause. My kids are not grown. They are still young. We are still probably a good several years away from significant others being introduced. I don't know what it's like to try to connect with adult children, but I found myself relating to Rocky, and I feel like her perspective is somewhat a universal one for so many women, especially. From personal experience, from listening to friends, from being in online groups with women, from reading books and studies, etc., etc. All of these things show that women do the vast majority of caretaking. Statistically, women do the vast majority of work for the house, of raising kids, the physical and emotional and mental load of what it takes to do all of these things. And the stats show that that's the case whether women work outside the home or whether they stay home. Women are doing the bulk of the home and relationship and care tasks. Rocky's story is not unique, and as I was reading, I could feel her frustration, I could feel her angst, I could feel the cognitive dissonance between what she was feeling and what she was experiencing and what she thought she should believe and what people were telling her she should believe. The cognitive dissonance as she was grappling with giving her entire life to these people that she loves and adores so much, and also how she feels. The way that she's trying to find her place as a woman with adult children, her kids are out of the house, her life is changing, her body's changing, her emotions are changing, trying to find out who she is as a person and her role in this family as people's lives are changing. There were so many great quotes in this book. I especially loved the way that it talked about being a parent and the depth of a parent's love. The kind of love that is so deep it physically hurts. The way that you can look at your kids with so much pride and joy and love and excitement for their future and everything that will unfold for them, while also grieving that so many years have already passed by and are over. This book is small. It's a relatively short book. It's 229 pages, but it is jam-packed with thought-provoking themes and storylines regarding change and grief and rediscovering yourself. It was sad. It was happy. I could feel the love of the family. I enjoyed this book, but it also unsettled me. And I do think I have to say I am probably was fixated on a few different themes that may have not been the intended themes of this book. I think this book was primarily supposed to be about menopause and just a woman in this phase of life trying to figure out who she is and how to be there for her family. But all these pieces really stood out to me and I do think really come to bear in the overall story of her going through menopause and experiencing these life changes. So it's a short book with a lot going on. I just want to say a big thank you to both Mark and Nick for recommending these books. I am really glad that I could read some of your recommendations and keep progressing through my list of all of the wonderful and many books that the BookTube community has recommended to me. Let me know if you have read Wide Sargasso Sea or Sandwich. I would really love to hear your thoughts. I feel like there are so many different themes and directions to go in discussing both of these books. It would be really interesting to have some conversation in the comments. If you agree or disagree or have other takeaways, it would be really interesting to hear some more thoughts about these books. And until next time, happy reading.